doing?
How are you? Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. And I'm Heidi. I'm based here in New York. And yes, my work is very focused on mending, and it has a strong focus on healing. I'll be talking quite from a personal point of view here, rather than these beautifully universal views that we've heard from the previous speakers. Thank you so much. Should I be sharing the screen here already? I will do that. Here you go. Hi. So
Maybe we don't see your screen.
Can you don't see my screen?
No.
Share screen.
And then just select the presentation and press the second button. Yep. Now we see, yep. So make it full screen.
There we go. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks to my assistant here. I'm starting with this image here. It's one of my favorite images from New York. I'll get back to this later. So yes, my work does have a very strong focus on healing. I'm not a textile artist by training. However, I have discovered the magic of the stitch, this humble little thing that has so much power. I'm from Finland, as you know, and you say Hankaniemi. It's totally fine. I'm used to every kind of pronunciation of it. But I'm from Finland. I haven't lived there since I was a teenager, but I go back every single summer and spend time at the summer cottage in the archipelago. And I'm sharing this image of Swedish hack embroidery because it seems to me that people outside the US or outside of Scandinavia aren't too familiar with this technique. I'm not sure, but that's what it seems like to me. Whereas this is really visually the textiles that I kind of learned or grew up with. My great-grandmother was a fantastic embroiderer, so every single bedspread and tablecloth had these very intricate hack weaved or embroidered or cross-stitched cloths on them. And I mean, these are massive pieces, so she really did a lot of work. My grandmother was a fantastic sewer. She, as is my mother, grandmother used to make these matchy hat bag ensembles from Burda magazine, which you might know. It was very big in Europe, and but there was a great appreciation for the handmade, textiles and ceramics, and we were always very encouraged to make things. There was also a great appreciation. So I'll just go back, and there's me with drawing with the grandmother. There was a great appreciation for the old, like a respect for the old. Obviously, my family, they all live in modern houses, but this place is kept as it is, and this is you can see there's embroidered tablecloths, and there's the embroidered bedspreads on the sides, and so it was it's really like an appreciation for this old way of making things by hand, and skill was very much appreciated. In my pursuit for artistness, I ended up in London at Central St. Martin's College of Art with a degree in critical fine art practice, a more conceptual, theory-based degree. And very cool. St. Martin's was still in Soho, so this is the Charing Cross site, and this is like a typical thing to be doing there. I'm taking part in a performance by my classmate Andy Moss. And yeah, lots of fun things like that were happening. It was all very performance-based, and we were doing funny things. Like at some point, if I remember correctly, after this, we were all lying outside on the street pretending to be, dead or something like this. But it was very fun. I was always making things. Like most of my friends have quilts and scarves that I've knitted to them by hand. but I kind of kept that very separately from my this kind of more fine artsy practice until, and this is where the magic started. We moved to, I lived in Oslo, Norway. And this wonderful arts and culture magazine called Fjords commissioned me to do 6 pages for their issue with the theme of speed, as in motion, speed. So I backstitched by hand 6 subway maps, metro maps, with the idea that me using this intimate, slow technique to describe these massive public transport systems, that there was something very interesting in that. So I made these 6 maps, then I made some more, and then I made some more, because I had realized that me piercing the fabric with this thought of this being a specific subway allowed me to not only physically with the needle, but allowed me to mentally merge with the place, so, and the city and the location. So I would so before Metro became a proper artwork, my approach was purely emotional. So I could think like, oh, I had a great time in Berlin once and my friend lives on this blue line. So let me just go and hang out with them for an hour while I stitch their subway line. So I kind of became this underground flaneur in a sense. Metro grew and grew and grew, and in the end I had all the world's subway maps. There's 148 of them. This is from the Embassy of Finland in Washington, D.C. They have this gorgeous, gorgeous building with a beautiful exhibition space. I had an exhibition there a couple of years ago, Metro and Bloom. I actually think this title is very clever, making connections, because that's what it was all about. But so you can see the Metro and you can see the blooms at the back. I'll get back to those two. And Metro has traveled extensively. Here's at the Moscow Museum of Modern Art. There's actually a very like a more analytical essay. I think it's on my website, I believe, by a Russian art critic called Anna Matvieva, that talks about the whole sort of more deeply, talks about the theoretical aspects of stitching and subversive stitching and so on. But it's on my website if you're interested. Another notable, I think, very nice mention or book is this British book called Textile Travels by Anne Kelly. It was published by Batsford Press. Then we have more Metro in Russia. And I just have to say, I've always had such a wonderful time in Russia, and it's just awful what's happening. That's a whole different conversation. Before New York, we lived in Madrid, Spain for 4 years, and we were right by the massive flea market El Rastro. And it's literally like a neighborhood, like tens of blocks. It's only on Sundays, but so it's huge. And there's antique shops, nicer antique shops, and then there's not so nice antique, and then there are these street sellers. And as you can see, there already, you can see some embroidered things on the floor. So there really isn't that much respect for the handmade such. But no, so we'd be on Sundays, and then you'd stay after, you'd have some beer and tapas, and we'd walk past or through it. And I'd noticed that when they're clearing the streets and sweeping all the stuff off for the garbage the next day, I'd start noticing that there were always like little scraps of fabric, in amongst all the other garbage that they threw in the basura. And this flower bit here, that square with the flower, is literally the first thing that I picked up from this like a cardboard old fruit box. And I admit my very first thought was, I wonder if it would be in the garbage if it was something that had been created by a man. So I started to consciously collect these things from the flea market, and I used a lot in my artwork. I worked on a series called Playing House for quite a while. But I felt that I couldn't, I would just pick up these things from the flea market and I would purchase things that felt very special, but I kind of didn't dare to, I was scared to compromise their integrity, so to speak. Like I wouldn't cut them the way I do now. Like all my current work, I cut the flowers out. But here I would really just try to like interpret the narratives that these textiles were telling me, what I could sense from them about where they'd been and what they'd gone through and so on. So this idea of objects and textiles, and especially handmade things, having a physical memory became very important to my work. And so there were all these kind of very object-based works. A touch of very domesticity about our immediate surroundings, how we relate with to the outside world, intimate, outside. A touch of Louise Bourgeois, of course. I think most female artists have to go through some kind of Louise phase, I think. And sleep mantra for insomniacs. I'm sharing this because it actually works. If you can't, so this piece has, there are 2 pillowcases and there's a little blanket with this "I will not sleep" embroidered to it. And truly, if you can't sleep, just keep repeating "I will not sleep." And also I'll add, there was everything, you know, I had these things in white. All these stories were kind of embroidered in white on white. So they were there, but not obvious. So it was a very, like, you know that they're there, but they aren't like shouting into your face. So it's more of a, I know, but kind of, you don't need to know that I know, but I know, like a very gentle kind of, not secret, but you know they're there, but you don't necessarily see them, but these kind of messages for life. So I will not sleep helps you sleep. Repeating "I will not sleep" helps you sleep. And then I think this is a good transition from "I will not sleep" to the city that doesn't sleep. We moved to New York. After Spain, we moved to New York, and a year and a half later, I get diagnosed with a brain tumor. So I have this major surgery followed by about 2 years of recovery at home, mostly. And this picture with the window really describes my existence during that time. And I actually really love it. I was living, many of you might know, we're right in the middle of Manhattan. We were next door to the FIT. So I'd be sitting here in my safe little sunlit cocoon with these embroideries, just watching New York go by. And yeah, it was very special. And then when I started to feel better, I started to go through my collections of all these things I'd collected and brought with me from Spain. And I could sense such history and comfort through them. And I really started to think about the women who had made them, what they'd been through 20, 40, 100 years ago. And it gave me a lot of strength. And it became and this working with these materials became a really significant and important practice. I was mending these materials, textiles, while I was mending myself. And in the end, we have the mending tapestries. So I was invited to Chelsea. I was invited to Chelsea Music Festival in Manhattan, which had a visual arts component. So I exhibited 6 of these mending tapestries at St. Paul's Church in Chelsea in Manhattan. And not being particularly religious to start off with, the fact that my first kind of entry back into the real world was through a church with these specific things was really, really special and quite crazy, to be honest. It really felt quite magical. And there's the classical music and the mirror, and it's all absorbing all these things. So I had 6 pieces there. One was kind of around the altar, and one was on the back, and then there were 4 on the sides hanging there. Some more from St. Paul's Church, and I'm happy to share that the mending tapestry number 1, the very first one I started with, has since continued to grow. And it was just a part of the beautiful exhibition curated by Ragna, Tectonic Textiles at Mana Contemporary. And I actually feel that it's now finished. It's grown over the years, and I feel it's come to its completion. So I'm very happy about that. I was a resident at the Textile Arts Center in Manhattan when it was still on 8th Street in the West Village. And I had this note in the window saying like, did your aunt or grandmother leave you a bag of useless doilies or embroideries? You can donate them here. And I started getting all these different things, and it's really quite interesting. It's funny to see. I mean, I get this like the top small image there. You can there's like someone comes, oh, I'm cleaning up our aunt's home, and we found this bag of. It has some textile bits you might find useful, and then there's some various random buttons and hair ties and jewelry and gloves and all kinds of interesting things with a lot of history. And these things feel so charged, and I feel I have I have a real responsibility to do something with them, whether they're inspiring to me initially or not. On the other side of the spectrum, we have the bottom small picture, which really doesn't do this justice, but Timo, who is a friend of ours, many of you might know him, gave me this incredible Irish wedding dress, hand-created wedding dress. It's been cut into, it's like 26 or 27 parts. And there are these intricate lace parts, and it's 100 years old. And I've had it. Timo gave it to me maybe 6-7 years ago, and I truly have not been able to, I don't even have a place worthy enough for these precious pieces. So it's a very it's kind of an interesting thing. My sort of personal mending project has become this much larger project of rescue. I work a lot with, I get a lot of these donations. I do some commissions and to keep this this thing going, you know, it feels like I've become, I have a responsibility to give these old things a new life. And especially when people bring them to you, like, here, my grandmother made this. It's something special. Please do something with it. Yeah, and so the mendings were all white on white, but in the years since then, color has slowly started to seep back into the picture and things are flourishing again. And now we have the blooms. So the blooms are hundreds of floral embroideries by a myriad of anonymous women brought together to bloom. And I think it's important to point out, without being too pretentious, because this is true, I'm not the artist here. I'm just a gardener or a facilitator, bringing these women and their spirits and their works together. The blooms have also been around. This was a consulate of Finland. Last year, this exhibition was a part of New York Textile Month. Thank you very much. There's Washington, D.C. again. There's always a nice response from women who can all relate to these things. So I collect anything embroidered with flowers, and I cut the flowers out and I combine them and give them a place to flourish in. So I love that I can, for example, have a red rose from Madrid next to a red rose from Kansas, next to a red rose from Sweden. Yes, feels very special. And a very strong, strongly mending related work, which I kind of want to end with, is Fix Habit. My friend and artist Maria Flavia Litwin and I, our team Fix Habit, we have these overalls and hats and toolkits. This is a slightly older picture. It's now been narrowed down to just a yarn and a thinner thread, 2 needles. We have a scissors and gloves. And we walk around. She's in Toronto, I'm in New York. Whenever we're in the same city, we go out together and we mend things that need mending. For example, this is a big problem. There are always holes in these construction protectors. So Fix Habit must come and fix it. Here we have another hole. Here we have Central Park, Washington Square Park. Also fix these kind of things. And I love this, that 2 years later, I walk through the park and my yarn is still hanging on the fence. It's got really dirty. This was a poster in Chelsea. And I love how this family was very confused about why anyone commissioned by the city was not really, but by us, bothering to mend a poster. And they were wondering who was paying us and couldn't believe that we were just doing it as a mending service. And this amuses me to no end. I had spotted this bike, like a courier's bike, at night outside my apartment, outside the home. And I got up early the next morning when it was light, and I went to fix it. And I just I mean, it makes me laugh so much. I can't even think of how, like, you can't get mad, obviously. How could you get mad? But like, what did this person think when they noticed that their bike seat had been mended? I find that absolutely hilarious. And on that note, thank you.
You, Heidi, so much. That was so beautiful.
Oh.
I feel healed already.
Yes, good.
Yeah.
I can come and sew your anything, fix your my hat and overalls on.
I will try to gather up my mendable items.
Or you can join the team if you want to start mending in Paris. Just get yourself a little hat.
Thread. Yeah. I'd love to. Thank you so much.
Thank you.